Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Conversation with Calvin, We the Species. And this series that I'm doing is in conjunction with the Garden State Film Festival, a film festival that I love dearly. I've been involved with them for 10, 12 years as a journalist, interviewing. Actually, the Garden State Film Festival was actually transformative in my life because 7 or 8 years ago, I was there on a Thursday night wearing my Rutgers hat, and I met somebody who changed the course of my life because I was at the Garden State Film Festival. So tonight, I'm really honored to be with Mark Burke, who's I was looking at my chart here, is at the tail end of being Gen Z. You know, this is your last year as a Gen Z. So enjoy it. So you guys can do the math. That means he's 23 years old, and at 23, he recently won Best Short Screenplay at the Garden State Film Festival for one last time, which we're going to talk a lot about. And I'm hugely impressed because that's a hell of an accomplishment for a young guy to walk away with that kind of an award from a very, very prestigious film festival. So, and I'm just kind of, and we're kind of neighbors. You know, Mark's a Monmouth County guy. I'm a Monmouth County guy. But his journey, we're going to talk about that. You know, starting at 13 years old, so he knows what he wants to do at 13, which is really impressive, hugely so. And I get a kick out of interacting with Gen Zs because I taught at Rutgers a few years ago. Even though I had an epiphany when I was teaching, I actually said this to my class. I said, "Oh my goodness," and they all looked at me like I was crazy. I said, "Oh my goodness, I just realized something. I'm over a half century older than all of you, and same thing with you, Mark. I'm a half century older, but yet we're on the same kind of same plane, same level, and stuff we're going to talk about. So this is a bit of a monologue to kind of get everybody really interested in your journey and what you accomplished and where you're going and stuff. So why don't you say a few background things, and then we'll jump into the interview. Take it away, Mark.
Well, hello. My name's Mark. It's a real honor to be here. I'm from Wall Township. I'm currently a college student at the Rutgers Brookdale program, and I'm really honored to be here. And it's really a privilege and such a tremendous honor to have won Best Short Screenplay at the Garden State Film Festival.
Which is great, which is great. So, as I do my due diligence as a journalist, you began writing stories when you were only 13 years old. Do you remember the first story you wrote that made you think, gee, I could really do this? I want to do this.
Yeah, actually. So I've written a bunch of comics when I was 11 years old. They weren't great. I was just like doodling. I was just like not really stick figures. Like I was just drawing characters and I stapled the papers together and made actual comics. I based it off some TV shows I watched when I was a little kid. Basically based off Lab Rats and Mighty Med. I was a Disney and Nickelodeon kid growing up, so a lot of those were honestly they really just looked like rip-offs of those shows. And I called it The Adventures of Bionic Mark and Terry Thunder. Um I Basically about two little kids becoming superheroes and basically them being bionic, just like literally a rip off from Lab Rats, and them having superpowers and them being superheroes. But I just made the missions just like Lab Rats, and by the time I was 13, I started writing little books about it, like these little open books that my mom gave me. And I started writing, I changed it up a little bit by the time I was 13. I called it The Adventures of Bionic Mark and Thunderstorm, replacing Terry Thunder, just changing it up a bit. And I actually based it off this real life incident where I was sleeping over my friend's house, Terrence, and I was wrestling with my friend Chris, and he threw my and he he threw me like and the back of my head hit a glass table and it was bleeding, and and in the story my friend put staples, which actually did happen to me, Yeah, no, not fun.
Oh,
And he put bionic components in those staples, and that healed me, and that gave me powers and whatnot. And then I became a superhero off that. Actually, no. So I named myself the Bionic Kid in those stories, and yeah, that was just one of the few stories I created,
okay.
and yeah, it was based off me and my best friend Terrence at the time. I wrote about hilarious missions of us together, but again, they were just based off of lab rats. But again, that was just like one of the few stories I've written. And I kind of stuck with that until I got to high school. That's when I started. I honestly, superheroes were always a huge inspiration to me, but by the time I got to high school and then college, I started transitioning them into something different. Like still like good-hearted heroes, but like transitioning from superheroes to warriors.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Um, so growing up in New Jersey, were there any particular films or shows or creators that kind of shaped your imagination? And of course, you just said some stuff just now.
Yeah, so like I said a few minutes ago, I grew up watching a lot of shows on Disney and Nickelodeon on television. Again, like I said, a huge inspiration to me when I was a little kid was Lab Rats. And that show was my childhood. Not just that, Mighty Med. Those two shows were a huge inspiration to my first stories at the time, especially off the bionics of those characters. The character traits were based off them as well. I just try to make it a little bit different because when I first started writing stories and comics about it, it was basically a ripoff of Lab Rats.
Okay. Okay. Um, the next question, in my having written three books, uh, uh, my latest novel, my tortoise novel, has gotten six national awards. I told you about that.
Yeah.
There's a tortoise in my hair. But it's funny, as a writer, and you'll see where I'm going with this question. As a writer, I'm not a big fan of dialogue. I don't like dialogue, and I try to avoid it. I know it's necessary, and how do you write a novel, without dialogue? So there's dialogue. But when did you first realize that writing dialogue and character dialogue, character interaction was one of your strongest suits?
Hmm.
Hard. I mean, that's hard.
Yeah.
When did you realize that you like dialogue and to write about that stuff?
So I think so I think I started realizing that during my junior year of high school when I was in a creative writing class. And throughout that whole class, I kind of made my own franchise. I kept writing off that junior year, that's been when I started transitioning off the bionic superhero idea and placing it into something different. So I created a whole new world that's connected to Earth and this world I made up, and it's called Super Trollus. It was originally an underground. It was originally still a part of Earth, but just an underground world from on Earth. But that's how it started. By the time I got to college, I started expanding that more. But so and when I wrote about Super Trollus, I wrote about the characters, like some people that were this, especially this one character who I based off myself at the time, and it's still based off to this day. His original name was Kyle. Like I changed a lot of names just recently. So Kyle was born in Trollus, but grew up on Earth. And he also has his brother, his long lost twin brother, who's from Super Trollus, who's king. And they his older twin brother Kevin and his allies, they try to find Kyle, and while they're trying to fight off the evil army that's trying to take over Super Trollus, they find him when he's a teenager, and they all have powers. And while I was writing that franchise, a lot of people, a lot of my classmates, even my teachers, they were giving me so much praise on it. They said it has a very good imagery, very good characters,
Yeah.
and had epic character development. But the thing I struggled with is, and this is something I struggle with to this day, and I know a lot of writers, and maybe including yourself, definitely struggle with showing, not telling. And but as literally, honestly, I started getting this. people, my all my classmates started telling me this by the end of the year. They said, as I was writing my stories, I intentionally wrote a lot of dialogue. I tried not to because I wanted to give good descriptions, but again, I always struggled with showing, not telling. And by the end of the year, that's when I started adding more dialogue, and all my classmates were saying that all the dialogue seems to carry throughout the story, and rather than the descriptions and me writing about it. That's when I realized that me writing dialogue it is my strong suit, and they said my story seemed more like a script. And that's when I realized that script writing is a better passion for me. And that's when I got into script writing in college. I was part of a creative writing club during my first year of Brookdale, and I wrote a little story. I wrote a lot of dialogue into it, and again, a lot of my club members said the same thing. They liked it. Again, I struggled with showing and not telling, and a lot of the dialogue carried it, and they thought it had great potential to be a good movie plot too.
Okay. In doing my research on you, your teachers said your writing felt cinematic. What do you think? I mean, so cinematic to me is so hugely visual. You could people can see that in the movie. What do you think makes your writing cinematic? It's just something that came to you naturally.
Yeah, actually. Again, it mostly came off that original inspiration of Lab Rats, and as I kept writing, I felt like and honestly, not just with the Super Trollis idea, as I kept writing, especially throughout college, I started getting to the ideas of taking that writing into other types of stories, like dramatic stories. And I felt like what makes it cinematic is how I write the dialogue specifically between two characters. I think what makes it, I think what makes the dialogue key is how they say the dialogue to each other, like making it realistic as possible and very dramatic as possible. That way it carries through the story and it also carries the heart and message through that too.
Okay. It's funny. I'm sitting here talking to you, and I know you're Gen Z. And as I'm listening to you to describe things, I'm saying to myself, can't be Gen Z. He's got to be 40. So I'm having an internalization here. Well, because you got such a mature, a grounded, view of this, and you're only 23, and that's kind of special. And by the way, that's just a natural thing. It's there, and you have it. Just out of curiosity, because I know, I've written 3 books, and one of my least favorite things is that thing called rewrite, which I've never done.
Oh yeah. Oh, I had to do a
Did
lot of
you do a lot
rewriting.
of with one last time? Did you do a lot of rewrites here?
Not really. Honestly,
Okay.
it didn't even take me long to write it because again, it's a very short script. It's actually only 7 pages long. So it wasn't really too long to write. And I think I may have rewritten like a few lines, but that was pretty much it.
Okay. All right. So now I want to talk a little bit about one last time the story, the relationship between Ethan and Ryan. Uh, as I gather, it's rather emotionally intense. Were their personalities, Ethan and Ryan, inspired by anybody or friendships in your life?
Yeah, actually. So I so s- do based off the information you read on me, I'm a martial artist, so that was a huge inspiration off that of One Last Time too. And I actually have a friend, Zach Trower, who I do fighting choreography with, and we haven't really hung out a lot recently because we've been busy with other things, which is totally understandable. But the times when we did get together, we would always plan out fighting choreography, and we'd always spar. It was a blast, honestly. Yeah, no, Zach's a really great guy to be around, but and I realized due to that friendship, I thought that would be a great inspiration to write One Last Time, basically of two fighters just being together. And there's these two little kids from my karate school. If you had read the script, it starts with Ethan and Ryan watching a video of them together, of them watching them fight their younger selves, and I can see two of my students, Tyler and Savion at the time. oh my God, those kids were actually straight up beasts. Like they're the future of the school. Like they're amazing. On not I'm not just saying that. They're fighting like they have so much potential to be great fighters. I'm not even kidding when I say that. And yeah, so and whenever they would spar, oh my God, it would be amazing. And the kicks from these kids, like they have like pure talent, they have pure skill, like they're only like 8 or 9 years old. And you
Wow.
don't see that in an
Wow.
everyday life of a kid that age. Like it's amazing. And I could literally see myself watching those two kids fight in that video that's based off me and Zach as our younger selves. And like I mentioned before, One Last Time was also a huge inspiration to Rocky, which you can see right here, literally right there. Yeah, so so it's really about the friendship between Ethan and Ryan, the bondage they shared through fighting. And Ethan has a fight coming up and he wants Ryan to help him with it, but Ryan refuses because he knows Ethan has suffered a lot through fighting, especially with bra
Yeah.
tumor. And if he goes through this one final fight, he could risk
Dying.
he could really risk permanent
Dying.
brain damage or
Yeah.
something even worse. But Ethan wants to go through with it anyway because he doesn't want to give up. Like he doesn't want to stop just because of one thing. But Ryan does. Like Ryan wants to change it, but Ethan doesn't because fighting like in his eyes is the only thing that's been keeping him going. He doesn't want anything to change that. He likes who he is. He doesn't want anyone or anything to stop that, not even Ryan. And honestly, that's what makes it a huge that's what makes Rocky a huge inspiration off of because there's a exactly similar conversation that Rocky and Apollo have in Rocky 4 where Apollo comes out of retirement to fight Ivan Drago and Rocky tries to talk him out of it because they don't even know anything about Ivan Drago, but Apollo does it anyway because it's something he believes in and not just for himself, but like also fighting for his country as well. But obviously, we know how that turned out. That turned out to be a huge mistake. Apollo ended up underestimating Ivan Drago, and he got killed in that fight because of it. And
Really
Rocky
got killed.
tried to talk him out of it, which is a similar ending to
Yes.
One Last Time.
Yeah.
With Ethan and Ryan sparring each other, and Ethan going a little bit too hard at first, which led to escalating to Ryan going too hard, and it ended with Ethan on the ground and him in and Ryan in his arms.
Mm.
Yeah, so basically it comes to show how people want to take certain things to the end. They want to keep doing everything they love. They'll die doing what they love, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and
And their uh, their passion, actually becomes dangerous to Ethan's health, and I can see some of that, coming from Rocky and Four and Apollo. It's funny you said something was interesting. You talked about fighting choreography. You were saying that before, and then I'm looking at the poster behind you, the Rocky, and I'm just amazed. I can't even imagine the choreography starting with Rocky One that
oh yeah,
that went into
yeah.
that, how intense and precise that has to be.
Oh yeah. And it's not just with Rocky, but it's with all the movies too. And I'm gonna be real, I know I'm getting a little off topic here, but I've seen the sequels more than the original movie. But
Uh-huh.
honestly, every time I do watch the first Rocky, nothing beats it. Nothing. I mean, yeah, the sequels are fun and all, but nothing tops the original. Nothing.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you an interesting thing that you probably don't know. Maybe you do. The story of Rocky was inspired. Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky with the knowledge of Chuck Wepner.
I think I knew that.
Chuck Wepner was called the Bayonne Bleeder, and he was a heavyweight fighter back in those days. And he was just like Rocky, he was a sparring guy, and in real life, Chuck Wepner, he used to whoever he fought, somebody used to punch him and used to bleed, so they called him the Bayonne Bleeder. And then the same way Rocky, Apollo got Rocky to fight him the first time. Muhammad Ali picked Chuck Wepner to fight, and they figured he's going to go down in one round, but he lasted the whole fight, and so that became the inspiration for Rocky. And then when Rocky became very, 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 very successful, duh, Chuck Wepner, I believe, sued Sylvester Stallone, and he actually won, and he got a settlement from Sylvester Stallone. Not too many people notice. I read all this trivia stuff, and I met Chuck Wepner when I was doing my journalism. He was being honored New Jersey Hall of Fame, so I went to the award ceremony, and I have a picture, me and Chuck Wepner. Nobody would, recognize him or know him, but that's a little bit of trivia for you, Mark.
Interesting. Yeah,
It's
that,
very,
that I didn't
very,
know. Oh my God. Wow.
yeah. You can kind of Google that or AI it and see. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty accurate with that. Anyway, um, uh, how does martial arts, your involvement in martial arts, come into one last time? Uh,
So I've been doing martial arts ever since I was 11 years old. And no matter what, martial arts is always going to be a part of me because I've been doing it for most of my life. And since I'm a karate guy, I figured this would be and clearly a huge fan of Rocky. I figured like those two were great inspirations to put into this because I could use it to create a character that has a passion for nothing but fighting, and he wants to keep doing that till he dies, which he actually does, obviously, tragically. And he wants nothing to stop him from doing that, even if it's something bad like brain damage. Like seriously, he wants nothing to stop him. And honestly, I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, even when they're so close to getting what they want, something they've always dreamed of, but they're like one bad injury away from losing it all. They want they want to stop at nothing just to reach that goal. I bet a lot of fighters, MMA fighters, boxers, literally every fighter probably thinks the same way, but they're being smart about it because they don't want to risk it. They don't want to risk losing. They don't want to risk one thing that could lose ev- cause them to lose everything, you know? But for my character Ethan, he he's got his eye on the prize. Like he fighting is the only thing keeping him going.
yeah.
That's the only thing on his mind.
Okay. All right. What do you like doing better? I mean, you're a young writer, and I don't know if it's a valid question, but do you like writing action sequences or dialogue or a combination? What do you like writing better? Action, dialogue?
I like writing that honestly, that okay. I like both, but I like writing the dialogue a little bit better because it rises the tension, you know? Whether that being good or bad, like it it ma- escalates things. I mean, yeah, like I love writing both, don't get me wrong, but actions I like writing, but again, it's the dialogue I feel like that carries it the most.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay. Here's a fun question. So one last time gets it moves on up. It moves on up. Uh, um, and you're an actor. Who would I love this question. And you know what? I always, my tortoise book, I always think maybe it'll be a screenplay. And I'm always trying to think who's going to play, the parts in my novel. Do you have any visions of who would, it's a fun question, who would play, your characters? You know,
So honestly, do you want me like just to name like people I know or like famous actors I know?
well, somebody famous. Who would you think would fit, into the role?
Um, Okay, so I'll give like the famous action actors one and the people I know. The people like that aren't famous, but like people like actors I still know. Honestly, Okay. Honestly, I can see Leo Howard playing Ethan.
Hmm.
Because Leo Howard, he's a real martial artist. He's an actor. He was actually in a couple Disney shows I grew up watching. He played Jack on Kicking It, which was a martial arts show on Disney Channel, and he was the star of that show. And he was a true inspiration to me too. I mean, Leo Howard is still a martial artist to this day. He's still an actor. So honestly, I feel like it's best for a martial artist or a fighter to play the role of another
Okay.
fighter. It only makes sense. You know. And as for Ryan, I'm not sure who, but I mean, honestly, it just makes sense for a martial artist to play another martial artist. You know. But the second person that came to my head, he's not really a martial artist per se, but I can see Michael B. Jordan as Ryan.
Okay.
I could see anyone else. Honestly, I'm not sure which other actor or martial artist could play Ryan. I mean, definitely I'm not sure. I can't really name a known martial artist off the top of my head, but like Michael B. Jordan was like one of the few actors that came to my head because he plays Adonis Creed in Creed. So I kind of figured, and again, Rocky and Creed, huge inspirations to me.
Okay. Okay.
But
Um, my next question is a kind of a fun question. It's off topic. I like to ask this to folks. Here goes. Uh, it's a fun question. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend the day with.
oh wow.
Yeah, isn't oh wow.
Wow. That's honestly okay, excluding friends and family, you said, right? Okay. Wow, that I
There could be a
like
couple. There's no rules.
yeah, no, like that's something I need to think on for a second because
Sure.
like so can I choose two, both dead and
Yes,
living?
absolutely. You can do whatever you want. There's
Okay,
no
cool,
rules.
cool, cool. Okay, honestly,
Like Bruce Lee, something like
oh,
that.
oh yeah, no, honestly, another person. Okay, I'd say Bruce Lee or Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, great answers.
Yeah, because
Great,
I mean Muhammad Ali, like.
great
I mean, he's
answers.
one of the greatest boxers in the world, and he was. Oh my God. And no, and it's so obvious. I mean, even Sylvester Stallone, like Apollo Creed was based off of Muhammad Ali. And I remember I've seen clips of it when Rocky won an Oscar. Muhammad Ali walked right behind Sylvester Stallone and he shouted, "I'm the real Apollo Creed."
Funny. That's
Yeah,
funny.
no, honestly, I would definitely love to talk to him.
Yeah,
And I would love just to sit down and talk to the guy, you know?
great answer.
Just to hear about his experience as a fighter and just to hear his perspective on life.
Great answer.
And
Yep.
living, okay. Living, I'd say William Zabka
Okay.
because it's
Uh,
so obvious. Again, right there, huge
yeah.
inspiration to me.
He
Great
plays such a
actor.
he plays such a lousy guy.
I'm sorry?
He plays such a lousy guy. No,
Yeah, no,
my
yeah, no,
son and I met him at Wizard World. Not Wizard World. We met him at uh oh gosh, up in Parsippany, the monster thing. You know what I'm talking about? Oh shoot, it'll come to me. Nice guy. By the way, he's a really nice guy.
oh yeah, so I actually did see him last year, last May at a Cobra Kai convention. I only talked to him, I only said hi to him for like a little bit. I was getting an autograph from him and he gave me a fist bump. And I told him there's like one scene from Cobra Kai in the series finale when he's talking to Martin as Johnny and Kreese, and I said both of them should have gotten Oscars for that. And he said, and he thanks me for it, and I was wearing a Cobra Kai gi, and he said, "You're wearing a good gi." Yeah, and I'm actually gonna meet him in like a month or so
Oh,
for another Cobra Kai event
oh,
that's coming
cool.
up in Jersey. And so, but still, like I would love to see him again, like for a second or for a third time, just to like get his experience as an actor. And I think he said he did filmmaking, so I would love to get his perspective on that. And
Great.
I would love to share ideas with him because I actually have a couple ideas that inspired by Cobra Kai to continue the legacy of Cobra Kai, and I would love to share that with him too.
That's great. Great answers. Great answers. It was Chiller Theater where my son and I met him. It's called Chiller Theater. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I don't think
Um,
so. Oh,
it's a 3-day event up in Parsippany, twice a year, and they have hundreds of celebrities, all kinds of celebrities, and they give autographs. You know, you pay money and they take your picture with them. But he
yeah.
was there. He was a nice guy. Okay, the last question for you. That's one of my favorite questions to ask. Looking ahead 10 years, what would success look to you as a writer, a screenwriter, an actor, a filmmaker? Where would you like to see yourself in 10 years?
Well, one thing's for sure, I'm hoping to like be living on my own for sure. Because yeah, no, as a 23-year-old, like I'm still like just like working as much as I can just to like save up, move on with my life, and just live on my own, you know? But besides that, I'd say I feel like um I would be like officially taking those scripts and turning them into like big time movies and shows. And think I'm like really like hoping against hope that I actually have some scripts for some show ideas. Like I said, like for earlier when I said like for Super Trollus that I wrote about in class, I've evolved so much more about it since then. I've thought about it. I've written it a few times, but like I'm still struggling to make it into a pilot. But I'm still hoping by then, in 10 years, that I've written everything down. And honestly, everything I've thought about it, everything I've dreamed about it, it's all in here. Like I just gotta put it down, like type it down, everything to the minute details. And by then, I'm really hoping that I've made it into a show by then
That's
because
good.
I feel like it has such franchise potential. And honestly, I can go into so much detail about it. I'd love to explain about it to you too. And I really do think it has so much potential to work as a show. And it's not just, I know like I've talked a lot about like action stuff. Super Trollus, again, it takes place an entirely different world, and mostly and also partly takes place on Earth too, because it's part of the backstory of my main character, Kaiko, which I can see myself playing as well, which I dream of playing as well. But I'm really hoping by then I've made I can have made it. I can make that show happen because that is my dream, and I that's what I want to make into a reality,
Nice.
hopefully by 10 years from now. As a
Nice.
writer, not only as a writer, but as an actor, but as a person. And not just that, but also creating other shows and other movies based off my inspirations because I have so many other movie ideas and I actually made my own short film over a year ago in the summer of 2024 based off a real life day of my friends. Some of my stories are actually based off real inspirations, just like One Last Time. And
Hmm.
some of these,
Yeah,
of course, because I've realized as a writer that the best stuff you to write is the stuff you know. And
that's
that's what
right.
I've been doing a lot of my scripts recently.
Smart.
And again, I've been writing honestly, I've been writing that a lot about my best friends and also with my personal struggles and I feel like with work, with friends, with family, with school, basically with balance, I figured those are the great inspirations to turn into scripts. And that's what I do. Granted, I know I'm still a college student, so it's a little bit chaotic to like find the time to write about those, especially with balancing between job, school, family, and everything else. So I don't have too much time with it. But once I do, I don't want to take it for granted. And I'm hoping I can use all of those ideas and just put them into shows and movies, especially by the time I'm 33. Like that's my main goal. That's my ultimate goal. especially 10 years from now. Honestly, I'm thinking the same things I thought when I was 13. Like, I was still thinking the same things. I want to be an actor. But the thing is, I didn't really put action into it until college. I didn't really think about it seriously until college. Like, I was really just dreaming about it when I was 13, but I never put action into it. But now I want to. And I technically am by submitting scripts to festivals like this. And I've actually submitted to other film festivals, like my short film, The Enigmatic Crew. That actually just won runner-up for best college film at the Brightside Film Festival in Jersey
Wow.
City. And
Wow.
one last time actually won best short screenplay at three other film festivals too, and which I'm tremendously proud of. But really, my main goal is to create Super Trollus into a show because I really do feel like that has potential to be one of the best written shows ever. And I'm not just saying that because again, I truly feel like I shine with characters, dialogue, and character development. So,
Nicely said. For a 23-year-old, not 40, you know. Um, you sound like you're 40. You're so friendly. Well, you do, you know. That could be a screenplay too. Somebody who's 80 interacts with somebody who's 20, 60 years, it's kind of cool. And we're kind of planing on the same level here. So, Mark, this was good stuff. Good stuff. And I really thank you for this. Uh, uh, you've filled my senses with interesting takes and perspectives. Talking to a 23-year-old at the beginning of an amazing journey that you're on, and what a piece of energy to put in your pocket. And I know all about getting awards because my book got 6 awards, and I stick it in my pocket. And man, and I feed off of that. I mean, and you won best short screenplay. Impressive stuff. Put it in your back pocket and let the rays from that piece of energy continue to energize you, and always fall back on that because you're the real deal. You
thank
know,
you. That really means a lot to me, Calvin.
yeah, you're the real deal, and I feed off of that stuff all the time. Sometimes we writers have our down moments because it's one writing is one bitch of a thing to do. Uh,
Oh, definitely, definitely.
it,
Especially with the rewrites. There's
oh,
like so many rewrites I have to make with some scripts, especially with this one feature script. Is it okay if I tell you about it a little
yeah,
bit?
sure. Be my
Okay,
guest.
so
Sure.
so there's actually this I actually implemented my martial art most of my martial arts into this too, and I feel like a lot of fighters Rocky was definitely inspired by this. It's called Never Give Up. It's about a young fighter, a 19-year-old fighter, Brandon Wilson, who has practically been learning MMA his whole life. He was bullied as a little kid. He got into fights and then he found MMA and that helped center him. And fast forward to present day, he's 19 years old. He's in his like first or second year of college and honestly, he hates it. He's only there because his mom forced him to. And as for his family life, he only lives with his mom. His dad's an alcoholic. He left when he was 4. And he the only memory he has of his dad is him drinking and him abusing his mom. And he doesn't drink at all because not only is he underage, but every time he sees alcohol, all he thinks of is his dad. And then he's more focused on fighting and then there's Joe, his trainer, and basically the guy he was closest with the most, who had just recently got out of jail. He was in jail for 6 years because he was married at a very young age, which was a stupid mistake. He's only like 6 years older than Brandon. And yeah, so dumb move on Joe's part, but the reason why he got arrested was because he was at a party and he found his wife cheating on him with someone. And the worst part is his wife didn't even know Joe was at the party. And so Joe beat took the guy his wife cheated on with and almost beat him to death, and that's why he got arrested. But Brennan didn't know that until Joe told him about it at the end. When Brandon and Joe reconnected, and like throughout like the at the end of the first act, Brandon decides to focus more on fighting, and he decides to drop out of school, drop out of college, despite his girlfriend not telling him not to. And his girlfriend actually plays a big factor in this because he relies a lot on his girlfriend, but she doesn't even give him the time of day, similar to Joe's experience, which Joe warns him about. And when his mom finds out that he dropped out, she literally kicks him out of the house. And Joe actually helped moves Brandon into his apartment while still struggling to find jobs. And throughout like the midpoint, they find a guy, and who could help Brandon set up basically an opponent for Brandon as he gets ready for his first amateur MMA fight. And after that happens, Joe tries to get Brandon's head in the game, but he's more focused on Kenzie. And then that leads to all his lost moment with Brandon and Joe fighting about it. And Brandon goes on his date with Kenzie, but that turns out to be a mistake because Kenzie has been cheating on Joe. I mean, with Brandon, with the guy he's supposed to fight.
Oh wow.
And that leads to connect, and that leads to Brandon and Joe connecting with their experiences. And Joe trains Brandon for the fight, and that leads to the climactic fight with Brandon and Joe. And Brandon wins, and his mom actually comes back, apologizes for everything, and but Brandon still decides to stay with Joe because he likes being independent. And Kenzie actually wants Brandon back, but he's like, no. He basically tells her to screw off, but in the most mature way possible. And I actually inspired that off of one girl I dated a few years ago who screwed me over big time, which I'm over. Honestly, it's those experiences that I feel like change me
Work.
for the better.
Of
And I
course.
use that experience and I put it into this story. And it won a couple awards, but there's this one specific contest that gave me a lot of feedback that I could have done better with. And honestly, it's that feedback I'm trying to use to make the story better, but it's been a while since I've done some rewrites on that. And I'm
Okay.
sorry if I went too fast. I usually,
No, that's
when it comes
fine.
to writing,
No, I
I go off on a tangent because it's the okay. Like I said earlier, it's funny. I, writing dialogue's easier for me, but the thing is, in my perspective, it's ironic. I love writing dialogue. It's easier for me, but the thing is, in my own perspective, action speaks louder than words. That's the crazy part.
and that's a good way to wrap. Action speaks louder than words. And talking to a young, successful screenwriter. So, uh, Mark, this was great, great stuff, Monmouth County and all this stuff. And I wish you all kinds of good things. I always say this to my guests. I sit in this chair 12 hours a day. You ever want to come back and rap and talk and kind of share some things? I'm always around. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely,
this
Calvin.
was fun.
Seriously.
This was fun. I'm
Absolutely.
glad I taught you something about Rocky and Chuck Wepner that nobody knows. Now you know it.
Yeah. Hey,
Yes.
you learn something new every day.
Every day. So I'm going to stop recording. Don't leave. We'll do a 2 minute wrap. Thank you, Mark, and
Of
good
course.
luck.
That,
Only
thank
good
you.
luck. Okay.